The day was gray and cold in Philadelphia, but inside the house things were warm and cozy. A middle-aged woman was looking through old photo albums. She showed her daughter a picture from when she was still a baby. "Look at that cute little thing," the mother said with a smile. The woman looked at the photo. It was a regular picture of her as a baby, nothing special. But then something caught her eye. "Mom, what's that?" she asked, pointing to an object in the background of the photo. In the reflection of the window pane, they could see another girl who seemed to be staring right at them. Two women looked at each other in amazement. How could this be? The two women looked at each other in amazement. How could this be? What they saw in the photo was undoubtedly a girl, and yet they knew for a fact that there was no one else in the room. So who was the girl in the photo, and how did she get there? Is it really possible that someone can literally pop into existence out of thin air? If you think so, then you should definitely check out the video we made about the shadow people. Anyway, let's get back to the story. The mother had no idea what was going on. After all, she had taken this photo herself and developed it right there in the lounge. No one else could have gotten in the photo because no one else was even in the room. She remembered that clearly. But how could that be if the photo was taken at home? Then maybe someone had sneaked in while she wasn't looking. But she couldn't remember anyone doing that, at least not without her knowing. Besides, she would have noticed if someone had been hiding in the house. She lived alone with her daughter after her husband died years ago. Sure, sometimes it could get lonely, but she never thought about inviting a friend over or perhaps even a lover. That was certainly not the case back then. But then something caught the mother's eye. In the bottom corner of the picture, she saw a coat hanging next to the sofa. But she clearly remembered that there was no coat there. Back then, there was never a coat hanging there. How could that be? Where did the coat come from? Suddenly, the mother remembered. Of course, she knew where the coat came from. It was the same coat she had seen in the photo taken of her daughter. But that was impossible. That photo was taken weeks after her husband died. So how could there be a coat there already? And why was it there if she had put it there herself? The mother was very confused. There was something strange going on here, something she couldn't understand. But then she remembered. This photo was taken before her husband died, and suddenly it all made sense. Her husband must have hung his coat there. Probably did that every time he came home. That's why there's a coat there in the photo. But then why does the coat appear in the second photo as well? Why is it still there if her husband had died? Well, now that she thought about it, she hadn't thrown the coat away. It was still in the closet. The mother felt relieved. Now it all made sense, and yet it didn't. It's true that the coat had been there in the first photo, but it shouldn't have been there in the second photo. Plus, of course, the second photo wasn't really taken later. But if that was the case, then who was the girl in the photo? The mother racked her brains trying to find the answer, but it seemed like no matter what, she wouldn't find an answer. Suddenly, her daughter spoke up. "Can it be that you took the two photos on different days?" she asked. "I don't know," the mother replied. "I think I took both photos on the same day. Let me check." She went over to the closet and pulled out the photo album. She flipped through the pages until she got to the photo with the coat. She studied the photo carefully. "You're right," she said. "This photo was taken on the 12th, but this one was taken on the 8th. The mother was amazed. She hadn't realized that at all. So the second photo was indeed taken earlier. But how could that be? Then she remembered something. When her husband fell ill, he went to see his doctor. His doctor advised him to go stay at a sanatorium for a while. He wanted to give his body some rest and recover from his illness there. So he left for the sanatorium for a few days. He told her that he would be back soon and that she shouldn't worry. And yet the day came when her husband didn't return. He had died at the sanatorium. He hadn't survived his illness. She remembered how devastated she was when she heard the news. The last few days before her husband died, she had been completely alone. She cried and cried, but no one came to comfort her. She was all alone. However, there was one thing that gave her some comfort. It was the thought that she had taken the last picture of her husband when he was still alive. She held on to that thought tightly. It helped her survive those difficult times. But now it turned out that that wasn't true. There was one photo taken of her husband after he died, but how could that be? Could her husband really still be alive? The mother thought about this for a moment. "That's impossible," she said. "He's really dead. I felt his body grow cold. How could he be alive?" But then her gaze fell on the photo of her as a baby. Had she also been holding on to the wrong thought in that case? Was she also wrong about that memory? How could that be? What other memories could she be holding on to that weren't quite true? What else could she have gotten wrong? The mother shuddered at the thought. All of a sudden, her world began to shake. Everything she thought she knew turned out to be a lie. What else was a lie? She started thinking back over her life, and her mind raced. She racked her brain trying to figure out which other memories might be false. Maybe more than she realized. At that moment, the phone rang. The mother jumped. She hadn't heard it ringing because she was so absorbed in her thoughts. She went to the phone and picked up the receiver. "Hello," she said. It was her niece. She asked if she could come over. She had something important to tell her aunt. The mother agreed. She would be happy to hear from her niece. She had no idea that her niece would change her life forever with just a few words. When her niece arrived, the mother immediately asked her, "Did you know anything about your grandfather?" The niece was confused. "What do you mean?" she asked. The mother explained to her what had happened. The niece thought for a moment. "Well, actually, yes," she finally said. "Grandfather died at the sanatorium, but he was actually never sick. He'd lied to us about that. He just wanted to spend his last days in peace. He didn't want to bother us. He wanted to spare us the worry, so he made up an excuse and went to the sanatorium. He actually just wanted to die there." The mother was stunned. That wasn't what she had been told. The whole story had been covered up, apparently. Everyone had just assumed her husband was sick and had died from that. No one bothered to ask why he really went to the sanatorium. "Why didn't anyone tell me this?" the mother asked. The niece shrugged her shoulders. "I don't know. Everyone was just so shocked by his death. I guess no one thought about it." The mother nodded slowly. So her husband had died in the sanatorium, but that didn't explain the coat. Her niece had no idea what the coat was all about either. The mother sighed. Some questions will simply never be answered, she thought. She would never know who that girl in the photo was. And yet the mother couldn't help but wonder, was she really seeing what she thought she saw? Or was her mind playing tricks on her?